Good morning. It's Friday. It's finally Friday.
Absolutely. It took a long time coming.
Welcome to the Friday Grief Chat. I'm Jill. Deb is in Oregon or someplace, and this is Wendy Marshall. There she is, opposite side. And she's our guest today.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Jill.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
having me.
She's also my next door neighbor, to be perfectly honest, and we've known each other since we were like this big. But Wendy has these skills that I absolutely do not, and that so many of our grievers from all kinds of losses really need. And we talked about it before, like how do you not turn into a grief hoarder with, furniture and china and all that stuff. But Wendy and her sister Allison are like the paper magicians, and they make paper make sense even when the paper doesn't make sense. I want you to think about everybody that you know who's had a loss or has moved, been divorced. I know I'm talking to you folks who have had to make big changes in their lives, who've had to move jobs, all those things. And the paper just sort of goes, right? And what do you keep? And paper includes pictures, by the way, because pictures are on paper. And that's a very big deal, right? That stuff. And she's got ideas to help you, and I'm going to pull them out of her because she was afraid she wouldn't get them all across. But Wendy is a natural talker, and Wendy can share all of her things. One brief Jill story, a work-related loss story. I worked for the county, which means you get shifted around occasionally or a lot, depending on whatever, or how much you piss off administration by being a union member. And so I was being moved yet again, and I had this box under one desk. I moved that box to 4 offices, and I never opened it. And the day I left the county for the final time, I took that box to my private practice, and it sat under my desk for 2 years, and I finally went, darn thing in there that I need. And I taped it particular reason. So there we were. Uh-oh, we just lost Wendy. Wendy, come back in when you can, and we will put you right back on. Use the same process and come back on. We're having internet trouble. There she is. This neighborhood has lots of internet trouble, so
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know what to do except
it's
wait.
okay. Just come
So,
back in.
what happened to the box under your desk?
I just took it to the dumpster.
You never opened it?
I never did.
Oh, wow.
18 years, it could not have been important. Right? Everything that I normally used, all the resources I normally needed, I distributed before I left the county, I took the ones that I needed for private practice. I threw away most of those too, because, resources age and become dated and you don't need them anymore. And we have this cool thing called the internet now, which we didn't have. And so we didn't have to keep mounds of paper. We could just download the most recent research, which is what I do.
But do you
Right?
print it out?
I print out a copy if I need to for someone, but mostly when I'm doing speaking gigs, I do electronic resource lists, and I can have like 50 resources and not have to worry about anybody, trying to haul paper home from a conference because all they have to do is click on the link. And I send my notes out electronically so they can just click away. It makes it much easier, and it's what folks prefer at conferences these days. So
For folks maybe of a certain age.
if you're at a therapist conference, yes. If I also include the name and title of it, and if somebody emails me, which they do, and says, "Could I just have it?" I will click it, print it, or save it as a document and send it as a Word document to somebody. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about those certain age. What happens if you've got someone who's had some kind of major life shift loss? Because it isn't always death, frequently isn't death.
Right.
And they've got all the papers,
Oh, my goodness. All the paper.
all the
When I
paper.
was divorced young, early in my marriage, and left with a small child, I had a box like you're describing, but it was filled with unopened mail because I couldn't afford to pay any of the bills. So I put them in a box because, if I can't see them, it's not a problem. And that box moved with me through 3 apartments to my condo when I finally was financially, emotionally, and just in a better place all the way around to open it. And everything in there had been handled one way or another. But it was my own personal albatross that I was just dragging from location to location to location until I had reached that point where I could take care of it. All of it was shredded. Nothing was important in there. But I just
It
hauled it. It was an emotional
it
baggage,
just feels
literally.
like it's right here or
Yes.
right here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And for folks who've just had a major loss and they've got all that
Oh,
paper, or the loss is mama or dad needs to go to placement and they got to
yes.
clear the house.
Oh, yes.
You've done that a few times for folks. What is that
Yes, I
like?
have. I have. It's it's both sad and fascinating. And please note, for anybody listening, there is no shame. There is no shame. Our great grandparents, right, the greatest generation, did not. I mean, I think that's when paper started becoming a daily thing. It was the newspaper. And then when FDR came around and we had the New Deal and we started getting there were paychecks, there was paper, there was Social Security kicked in the right in the 50s, in the 60s, and you get paper. And then there's Medicare and there's more paper. And suddenly everything the government does for us is generating paper. And the greatest generation, right, went right into the Great Depression. And our grandparents were raised in the Great Depression. Some of our parents, if they were old enough,
My
in the Great
parents.
Depression. Yes. And you saved everything, right? You reused it, or you could turn it in for scrap and get money for it. And so our parents coming into the 70s, coming into the 80s, they have paper. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to save it. They just file it. Taming the paper tiger, right? All about filing it, filing it, filing it, filing it. You don't know what to do with it? You file. Create a file, file it. Alphabetize, file it. My uncle passed away 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter found 9 4-drawer filing cabinets in the basement, full.
Oh, heart be still. I know that feeling.
And bags of paper that yet needed to be filed. From the military, so he wasn't traveling anymore. He wasn't being relocated, obviously. But this was back from easily from the 95.
Mm-hmm.
Paper, so much paper. She started going through it when she realized she looked for photos, and then she looked for personal triumphs and certificates, and then the rest was shredded.
Mm-hmm.
There was no need for her to go through any of that. But to your point, Jill, when you're dealing with the emotion of grief, of loss, or potential loss, anticipatory loss, and you see the paper mounting up, or you finally got mom or dad to a safer location, and you open the door and you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much attached to that. And it's not just a floor you need to mop, right? Or a box to unpack. Everything in there needs to be touched because you have to evaluate it. And
And
it
even
is
if it's
so
stuff that
hard.
you don't need,
Correct.
but it mattered enough to them to keep it,
Right.
that there's that extra guilt layer, and grievers do guilt. They do it so well. The number
Well,
one emotion, right? It really is. Research says, ding, 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 guilt followed by anxiety. Those are the two. I could play that
it is.
that game on that. Yes. And so you have all that stuff, right? And you got to touch it. And how exhausting is that?
Really exhausting. If you want to do it yourself, because you can hire people to do it, not just me and my sister, but you
But
can
hire
hire
them.
people.
Hmm.
Or you can, have a friend come over, have a couple of friends come over, have a bottle of wine, have the coffee pot full, turn on some background music or a TV show. What always gets me going is watching any hoarders show on Netflix. That always inspires me just to keep going. But sorting the paper, it's just sorting. It's a matter of just opening everything, touching it all, sorting it into general piles. The piles will grow organically. You may have a lot of finance data, you might have a lot of medical stuff, you might just have a lot of photos and memories. And the piles will tell you what's the important one, what's the top one, because you'll have the most of that.
So we
I always
follow the piles.
follow the piles.
I
And the
like
easier
that.
ones to do are like the financial and the medical, because while there's always going to be emotion, that's always going to be the sore tooth that you're touching with your tongue, even though you know it hurts, you know, you're going to keep going back to it. But those are the ones, when you get those done, you will feel a lot more relief. When you have all the medical, you get all your medical into one big pile, and then you take that pile to another place, a bed, a clear table, the floor, and you sort it again. It will provide you with a better view of where your parent or your loved one is medically. Do you have all the Medicare together? Do you have all the invoices? Are there any outstanding bills that need to be paid immediately? Do you need these lab results? And the same with the financial. You pull out all the tax information. Pull out, oh, look, grandma does have 4 different bank accounts at the same bank. Have your highlighter. Make sure you're highlighting the right account number.
So that you know, right. And how
Yes.
many years of taxes do folks really need to keep?
You know, the IRS says 3 years if you've never done anything wrong.
And if you might have an audit?
I believe it's 7 to 10.
Okay.
And I am guilty because I have my first taxes that I ever filed, because I like to look at that and compare it to where I am now and pat myself on the back.
Okay, so what, but one, right?
Yes, just 1
Not
year.
all the
Yes.
taxes from, when I started sorting at my parents' house, I had taxes from 1956.
Yeah,
Fascinating, but unnecessary.
correct.
I took a
Correct.
picture.
Yeah. I have
Mhm.
one check stub that my mom's, 1973, I think. Just that one. Just
Mhm.
again, just to look at it. And I'm like, ooh.
I have the check my dad wrote for my birth. I cost $17.
Worth every penny.
I think so. I mean, that was kind of a relative bargain for $17. But yeah,
What is it in today's money, Jill? It's probably like $14,000 in today's money.
17, I don't know. The house was 12,000. I don't know, but we don't need all the things, even though they mattered
No.
to the person who's gone or the situation who's gone. When you've sold a house and you've given owners everything, like you just sold your condo, you don't need the receipts for the paint you bought when you first took the place for
Oh dear.
yourself.
No. No.
You don't need those things anymore.
When my mom passed away, she had a shoebox full of paid utility bills. Went back 4 or 5 years. One shoebox. Just carefully, meticulously canceled check stapled to each one. And I was like, why, Mom?
You are not your mother's daughter in that one instance.
Yeah. No, but again, it's back to they were taught
Right.
to hold on to everything. They weren't taught,
Absolutely.
hey, you know what? When you get the canceled check back, then the utility company really has no reason to ask you. Maybe save the calendar year, maybe save rolling 12 months, not 7 years, but she didn't know.
Right. And we
know?
didn't have internet then, so you couldn't just go on and look at it because you can see all the past bills now
Right.
on your utility company.
Yes,
One of the
you can go
things that
back.
I see with lots of seniors when there is sorting for dementia or sorting because of grief of a loss of a loved one is all the Medicare paperwork.
Oh my God.
Medicare is they should be fired for all the trees they kill. Right? It's horrific how much
They
paperwork.
should be fired, and they should set it.
They're wrong. And yet people are afraid to get rid of the stuff. What
Yes,
happens if I need this? It says it's important.
right. But do you
Not
ever go back to
important.
it?
Right. Right. It's really good for fireplaces, except sometimes we can't even use fireplaces with wood anymore.
No,
So it's
no.
got to go in recycling. Right. What about pictures? How do you sort the pictures?
Ooh, so when we come across pictures, if they are in good condition, because sadly, when you have a lot of pictures and you have dementia or age or loss, the pictures aren't always in a place that is safe from bugs or water or other liquids. So we don't toss anything. My sister and I don't know about other paper organizers. My sister and I don't toss anything. We present it to the owner like, we suggest that you toss this because it smells like rat pee.
Yes.
Or, if it's all, stuck together, glued together, and we can't peel it apart, we're just like, not really safe. But it also depends on whether or not the dementia patient is still alive.
Hmm.
So what we did for several of our members, of our customers, is we get one of those pretty cardboard boxes from Michael's that are big, depending, and we put the Christmas letters in there and Valentine's cards and Mother's Day cards and photos. So the patient can go back and open it up and look through them. And that seems to make them really happy. If you are the survivor from the family and you're doing it, that might be an option for now. There is so much, and I don't need to tell anybody who's watching this, so much emotion involved with those that it's hard. I don't encourage anybody throwing anything away. You save it someplace safe, plastic bin, put it away. Wait. It's kind of like your to be read shelf, right? Or a bottle of
Right.
wine. There'll be a point where it's suddenly right for you to open that bottle of wine, to read that book, to go through those photos. And it doesn't have to be right now. Just put them someplace where it's waterproof and safe for you to wait until you get to that point. And maybe you never do. Maybe you don't get into genealogy. Maybe, you're the last one of your family and you don't care. That's fine. That's totally fine. No
But
guilt.
maybe you send it to a historic society if it's from, a certain era that a city may want it for that reason,
You know what? One
right?
of the women I
Distribute.
follow on Instagram who organizes, she found a letter that was signed by Abraham Lincoln to the great great grandfather, and it was completely a surprise to the grandparents whose house she was organizing.
Wow.
And that one is definitely going to a museum. But that also enforces you have to touch every piece of paper. Take the
Yeah.
books and shake them out.
And if you're cleaning up after a dementia loved one, you
Oh,
really have to, because sometimes things get way mixed up.
we
Speaking
find
from
money.
experience.
Yes, we find money almost every single time. If not cash, we find live checks every time we claim up people's papers, dementia or not.
Hmm.
And hundreds of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
For my
So,
mom, it was thousands. Yeah,
yes.
in old checks that I'm still dealing with to this day. Thanks, Mom, very much. Right? Open the mail, people. And if you are noticing your loved one isn't able to anymore, open it for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I will say, Wendy organized for me, for my mom, while she was still very much alive, but had been unable to sort things and had piled things up on her patio, unbeknownst to us.
Yeah.
And a lot of it got destroyed, but those pretty little boxes made for time for her with her memories. And it
Good.
got to the point where she couldn't remember who the people were anymore, but she could hold on to them and she knew they were someone important to her. And the
Oh,
Valentines from my dad mattered
yes.
tremendously. And she would hold on to those and fall asleep with them on her chest. And
Oh, I'm
that
so
was
happy.
important. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that if we are not able to do the sorting, if it's too much, or if the person doesn't want the family to go through stuff, sometimes it's easier to hire someone, right? Just like
Hmm.
trying to hire someone to do baths. Your loved one may not take a bath for you, but if you present them with someone who's outside the family system, and they're going to give the bath, and I'm going out for coffee, then they will
Oh,
cooperate.
that would be so much easier. I don't even want to think about my son trying to give me a bath.
Right, exactly. You hire someone to do the stuff and then you exit, so there's no argument.
Yes.
And the same thing goes for some of the organizing. And sometimes if it's someone who's still there, even if it's not dementia, if it's just age and they're trying to sort stuff out, it gives them the impetus to do it and someone reasonable, not emotionally attached, to determine what to do with it. Right?
It's not always easy either. Please note,
No.
it's not always easy. It's hard to have someone come in and touch your stuff because there is a lot of guilt with how did I let it get this way and
Hmm.
looking at it from a stranger's eyes. But we have worked with um, clients who have participated with us. You know, we're doing the heavy lifting, metaphorically speaking, by opening it all and doing the stacking. But as we come across things that look like they're critical, because the customer was participating with us, it was easy for us to hand it to her and she could make decisions and put it together right there. And it was nice after a year of follow up because we offer follow up to keep on top, help you keep on top and help keep filing it and or putting it in a binder or just making the other person accountable. You know, she got it herself and she was able to take care of it. And she was so happy to hear that. And then others are just defensive. You know, we try our best. I am thinking of a client who had lost her spouse. And we were trying to make her office a workable office for her because it was not her domain. It had been her spouse's domain,
Hmm.
only to find that her spouse had decades of paperwork that should have been filed in the garage. Stuff she wasn't involved in. It was all closed, past, not even reference material anymore. It was just documentation from his prior job. We moved all that to the garage for her and tried to make everything around her current. But those were things that she wasn't physically able to do. And it was hard for her to make that decision. Yes, because she looked at the paper and she could still see her spouse,
Right.
you know,
That was his
and
signature. That was his world.
yes, but that was also weighing on her as well, you know.
Yeah. I remember going through my mom's garage last year about this time, and we had skip loaders coming. It took 4 loads to clean out the garage, and it was only halfway done, folks. Because my mom learned from the best from my grandmother as to how to hold on to stuff. And she
Yes.
was the recipient. She and my dad got everything from everybody in the family. It was like this funnel. And so we had her on the front porch and under shade, and we would take her things that really needed her hand to sort, and the rest we would just run out to the skip loader.
Good.
It
Smart.
was an amazing amount of stuff. But again, had we not touched everything, we wouldn't have found some treasures. Like my grandfather writing a letter in 1950 to the state of Kansas wanting statistics on what had gone wrong in the state since evil alcohol was allowed to be sold once again,
Oh
right?
no.
And it provided a chuckle for all of because there were lots of grandchildren in that garage sorting and dirty and great grandchildren. And it was kind of fun to read the stuff in between the lines there, right?
To
But
see the response from the state of Kansas.
they sent him stats. Oh my God, they sent him stats. Yes, they did. How many DUIs, how many liquor stores, what hours they were open,
Wow.
how many divorces had occurred. Kansas
Oh my
apparently
god.
didn't like alcohol. And
Oh my
so they were not happy they still had alcohol. He did Kansas, Iowa, and I think Missouri or something. And then and my mom never said we showed it to her. She laughed. We kept a few of them, sent them off to my aunts. And then, because I'm good for if there's paper to be kept, I will mail it to somebody else rather than it going to my house.
god. Smart.
The United States Postal Service is a really good helper in this stuff, folks. But I mentioned it to my uncle, who I don't see very often. And he said, you know, little known fact, there was a ton of alcoholism in Grandpa's family. And so he had a vested
Oh.
interest in stopping alcohol. He said, not a wise interest. It was never going to happen. And
Right.
my grandfather, my uncle has this massive bar with top shelf liquor, right? But he wanted to stop alcohol and he was all
Wow.
invested. So we found lots of those kinds of
Oh, bless
letters
his
and
heart.
states that actually cooperated.
Wow. I
He even
love
went
that
to
they
the coroner's
cooperated.
office. Yeah, he got coroner stats. Like,
Wow.
oh, grandpa, yeah. But that's the kind of stuff that you would never know those parts of your ancestry, if you didn't know. And if you give the person who's still there the chance to have some input, it makes them not feel taken over. which is important. Now, grievers don't do a good job with sorting stuff of their own after someone dies. While they are grieving, whether it's a new move, they're in a new neighborhood, they're fish out of water, they don't have their standard support system. You move to the right neighborhood, I just got to say. But some people move far away and they don't have their support system. And they
Right.
don't have, or they've lost their job and they've had to shift to somebody's shared bedroom or what. And their brain is just in that grief fog, which is well documented and well researched. How do they keep track of stuff so they don't lose the important papers that they do need versus tossing the stuff that's just going to get in the way?
Yeah. Ideally, they handle it before they move, right? Because we can foresee all these horrible things happening to us way in advance.
Apparently, my sound is going in and out, so I'm going to
Oh
try to
no,
get a lot closer, but we'll see what happens.
we should have just been in the same room together, Jill.
We should have, but I still would have internet issues with this charming internet company that we have of ours. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I've lost a connection 3 times already, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's for those of you who share the same internet company, I gotta say thank you, Spectrum, for nothing today.
Yeah,
Right?
no kidding.
So if I am needing, you've talked before in other contexts about the Sunday box. How
Mm.
does that work?
So that is one provided by a company called Organize 365. And that is run by a woman named Lisa Woodruff. And I recommend if somebody is having problems with their paper, but they don't want to hire anybody, which I completely understand. Again, no guilt, no shame. She's helped me a lot. And the theory is that you have one spot to put all of your all your paper goes in a box. It's a fabric box. It's big enough to hold a watermelon. And everything goes in there. And then once a week on Sunday, you go through the paper and you look at you open everything, you touch all the paper, and you make the decision. Do I need to work on it this week or can it wait till next Sunday? If it can wait till next Sunday, it goes back in the box. But it's nice because once you get in the habit of dumping all your paper in there, you know where it is. Somebody comes to my door and says, hey, we mailed blah, blah to you 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, I don't care, but hold on a second. Oh, yeah, here it is in the Sunday basket because there's no other place for it to be. This is its home for paper, is in the Sunday basket. And then it becomes a more detailed organizing within it. We have files within it to put projects that you're wishing on. If I come up with an idea for the backyard, like putting up white vinyl fence with my neighbor, that is actually something that's in my pocket for the house. It's just, for me, it's the main thing is one spot to collect all your paper that you go through every week. And that's key. You can't just collect the paper. You have to then go through it every week, and you have to touch it every week and make a decision about it every week.
That's the big important part. So we don't end up with it
Organize
cluttering life.
365. Yes.
Organize 365.
I recommend that. She's got a great podcast. She's very enthusiastic, so be prepared. She's high energy, enthusiastic. My son calls it a cult.
Is it kind of like the Marie Kondo thing that you know, everything must bring you joy?
No.
Okay. That feels more cultish to me. Honestly.
I understand it. You could do that with when you're going through things left over from the one you've lost. You know, this was my niece's favorite soda drink.
Must hold it forever.
Yeah, but it doesn't bring me joy, and it just makes me sad. So I'm going to allow myself to say goodbye to it.
Right.
That I understand, but the rest of it, no, it's just about making your house more functional and productive. And paper holds so many Americans back. So many Americans.
And it's so overwhelming. It
is. And it's hard to stop. You can't, medical offices, everything's in paper. They'll do very little online. And I understand, I guess it's because of HIPAA, because it could be hacked. So they don't want to put it all out there. But man, medical, Medicare, insurance, all paper.
All of it.
Paper.
As
So
much as
much
I can do electronic, I do. And I work with
Yeah.
my grievers to do the same.
Though I will say, as a proud last year of the boomers, I have a paper notepad,
Oh, I
and
have one of those too.
I can tell in my when I go to conference calls at my work when we have a big conference, big meeting. I can tell how old people are by how many people have paper to take notes, and everybody else is on their laptop.
And a paper calendar, because even though electronic calendars are good, paper calendars keep you honest.
Yeah.
And they help grievers because they can see the darn thing on the wall.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you taking an early lunch so that you could be here with us. Folks, if you have any questions, send them into the podcast and I will make sure they get to Wendy and we will get the information back to you. Next week, we are hoping to have Talia Bambola, who is an amazing therapist and has a product line too of the most hysterically funny therapist stuff. But she talks about grief in a new way. So in situations. So Wendy, thank you. Have a good rest of your Friday. I'll see you tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.